Welcome to the WA Property Q&A, the podcast where I explore the ins and outs of buying property in Western Australia. I'm your host, Peter Fletcher, and each week I interview local property experts to help you to develop a deep understanding of the nuances of buying property in WA. From market trends to legal considerations, no topic is off limits. But before we dive in, a friendly reminder. While we provide valuable information, it's important to note that nothing discussed in this podcast should be construed as personal investment advice. Always remember to seek the appropriate professional advice for your specific circumstances. Now, let's get started and unlock the secrets to successful property buying in WA. Welcome to another episode of the WA Property Q&A podcast. I'm your host, Peter Fletcher, and with me today is a very special guest, actually. His name is David James. Now, David, I have known since about April 1985, when I walked into his office in Kalgoorlie as a very fresh-faced 21-year-old. I had my black leather tie on, my white shirt, my baggy pants, and I wanted to get a job as a real estate agent. I got interviewed by David and Graham in their big flash office with the atrium, and they were stupid enough to give me a job, and well, the rest is history. And here we are as two real estate agents all these years later. David, your business grew from humble beginnings to a very big business in Kalgoorlie. That you ended up selling, moving to Perth. Now you're a sales coach to some of the leading agents in Perth now, and as a smart man, you're no longer practicing as a real estate agent. Have I summarised that pretty well, Dave?
Very, very good, Peter. Absolute pleasure to be here with you, mate. And God, that was 40 years ago, Peter, almost. So right, move on with the dates. Yeah.
Move on before we forget much more of it.
And yeah, Peter's right there. We went through all that, and I remember saying to Peter, which he can finish off the story. So you've got a car, haven't you, mate?
Oh, I tell you, that was one of those questions. In every interview, you're a bit worried that you'll get asked the question that you don't know the answer to. Well, I had this old bomb, old XY Falcon. It'd be worth a heap of money now, but this old bomb out in the car park, and I went, oh shit, what am I going to say here? And I said to you, just looked you straight in the eye. I said, well, I've just got an old bomb out in the car park, but if I get the job, I'm going to go to Perth this weekend and buy a new car. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to do this? Because I didn't have any money in the bank. I had nothing. I had to get a loan for the car and a loan for Rita's engagement ring. And I just had I don't know how I thought that I was ever going to pull all that off, but it happened.
And Peter, when you look back on your career and those days in Kalgoorlie, there's a message there for all people, whether you're a veteran of the industry or whether you're just coming through, etc., and getting started, or you've been in it a few years, is that from a principal's point of view, which was myself, and now from a coach's point of view, you did everything that you were asked to do. Whether it was being letterbox drops or calls or whatever it might be, Peter just did it religiously. There was no sort of, I don't want to do that, I don't like doing that. And there's a real message there that Peter Fletcher got started by doing exactly what we told him to do.
So back in the day, we had this thing called the white pages, remember?
Yeah.
And because the white pages in Kalgoorlie was so small, it was acted like a reverse phone directory.
It was, yeah.
So I just sit there at night and just be calling people. And back then, no one did telephone canvassing. So it actually worked. Like I'd spend an hour on the phone and come up with half a dozen appraisals, and life was pretty easy. And I remember those letterbox drops. I did those yellow letterbox drops with my photo on them, and we'd put those out and get a heap of calls, and now
you would.
it's just because there was no one doing it.
No, that's right. Yeah, and Peter, once again, that's another message. Yeah, no one was doing it. So when you look at those key things, do what your competition's not doing, because there's never any shortage of marketing or prospecting ideas. And I was fortunate, but prior to going into real estate, I sold life assurance door to door in Kalgoorlie. So I was taught how to door knock. So it was just a matter of going, well, I'm going to go down Cheetham Street, I'm going to go down to Collins Street, whatever it might be, and knock on doors. And really?
Somebody actually turned
you
up.
You want to sell our house? Yeah.
You turn up and you get the business back. Yeah.
It was, different now, a lot more competitive these days.
And Dave, as we said off air, the conversation today, we wanted to sort of hone in on, well, what makes a good real estate agent? If one of our listeners was sitting at home going, well, I'm thinking of selling a property, and then, well, how do I assess what a good real estate agent is? And that's the sort of thing that I want to dive in on today, if we can. Obviously, we'll get distracted, but when you think back, when you reflect on the last 148 years. No.
Thank you. That's pretty accurate.
On the last, 38, well, in your case, it would actually be
40 years,
40 plus years, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
because you started out, you started out with Cecil Brown, didn't you?
No, started at Brown French.
Brown French, that's right. Yeah. Brown French and then Brown James when I joined you. So when you reflect on the last 40 years, what's the trajectory of industry professionalism in your experience?
Okay. Yep.
What are you thinking?
The most immediate thing that comes to my mind, Peter, was that right from that day one, you signed up that this was going to be your career. This was it. Because, I was no different to anyone else. I was married. We only had one child at that stage. We had a mortgage on a house in Perth. We had a mortgage on a house in Kalgoorlie. And I was going commission only. So you had to sign up that this is me. I'm not going to deviate from this. I'm going to make it work. And I see that that's one of the biggest changes. Sure, technology and that, but at the moment, Peter, there's a lot of people in our profession that are doing it for convenience sake. It works with their lifestyle, and particularly if their partner's working and they got to do school runs, or they got to do this, or they got to stay home during school holidays. When we started, you were in. And
it was all or nothing.
It was all or nothing. There was no second jobs or whatever it might be, or your partner earning more money than you, etc. And I think that was fantastic grounding, because it taught you discipline, it taught you financial management, and taught you how to be broke from in those days, commission check to commission check. But now a lot of people in our industry are supported by their spouse's income, and they're doing other things in their life. And but if we look at the positive out of that, if you're really into this, etc., it opens up the door to a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. Do you think that we were, the professionalism has improved in terms of, were we a little bit Wild West back in the day, and are they more polished now? Okay,
so how open is this podcast, Peter? Because
it's public, David. But the statute of limitations is going to save us.
Well, I'm not a licensed agent anymore, but
I am.
Yeah, sorry. Well, you never did this because you picked me up on it. So I would say to young Peter Fletcher, mate, come on this listing presentation with me, and I'll show you how to list a property. And invariably, I knew the people. So all I wrote on the listing authority was the price and the fee. And Peter would say to me, but Dave, aren't you supposed to fill it out? Oh, do that later. I know them, etc. So yeah, there was an element of that, but that's not to say that we didn't, our compliance wasn't spot on and these sort of things, and well, throughout my career, I was only ever reported once, which I was found not guilty for the want of a better word, and that was through no fault of my own. It probably was at the start that I should have qualified these people more, but yeah, Peter, it was, and yeah, I think there's a lot more compliance these days. I can remember, and it would have been in the 90s where we went through a lot of risk management training through REWA and in those days the supervisory board, and they tightened down on us, etc.
There's a lot of compliance that agents and others have to go through, but I sometimes wonder whether it's actually had much of a benefit to the punters, as in, there's the listing form. Back when I started out with you, the listing form was literally the whole of the document was on one A4 sheet of paper, and the top section was the details of the property, price and bedrooms, bathrooms, that sort of stuff. The bottom section was the listing form, and now it's 4 pages of initial here and initial there, and I'm not 100% convinced that we are substantially better off for the increased amount of work that we're doing.
Yeah, Peter, I think that can be summarised in regards to, and I don't know, but I deal with a lot of people in my coaching business in the real estate industry, and I don't know whether I've got a really good bunch, but I never hear. No one ever says to me, "Oh, DJ, I'm really in trouble here. I didn't fill out the listing authority right, or the O&A, went bum up, or whatever it might be." So I think if you look at in recent years, there's somewhere between 900 and 1,000 houses sold every week. That's 45 to 50,000 houses a year get sold, and I think professionalism. Yeah, I think we're really, really, really good at it. Because I don't. None of my clients ever say to me, "Oh, I've got a major problem here, DJ."
Dave,
sure,
come and bail me out.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be little things. Yeah. When you go to the final inspection and there's something, and that's a negotiation to take you through that. But major, and when it is major, it appears in the press. But So when we look at professionalism, there's a lot more compliance. There's a lot more that we have to do, or the industry has to do, etc. And I'm still of the belief, Peter, that they just want you to sell their house. That's what they want. Because they're on a real estate journey when that happens, the seller. They're 4 steps in front of us. And always say that when you put a price on the property and you put that price on the listing authority, by the time you get home, they've spent it. The seller's spent it. They're 3 or 4 steps in front of us, so they just now want us to go and find a buyer so they can continue their real estate journey.
So, what makes a good real estate agent? The agents that you've coached and employed, the dodgy ones from the early days side. What makes a good real estate agent?
Okay.
What do you think?
Okay. So, mate, we can go through the traditional things like passion and, you've got to get in and have a go and all those sort of things, Peter. But I'm going to step outside the square here and where there's a lot of people at real estate conferences now talk about work-life balance and your health and all those sort of things, which you've got to be conscious of your mental health and your physical health and your financial health and your values health, etc., etc. But the really good ones that do, that are selling probably 50, 60 houses and above, up to 100, 120 a year, I think they're very good, Pete, at operating in organised chaos. Yeah. They are. They can run with 10 listings at a time, or at the moment, they can run with 3 listings of which they're getting multiple offers, 10 offers on every property. And they're in organised chaos, but they're very, very good at it.
Well, I believe one of your clients is Michael Keel.
Yeah,
at least
that's right.
He probably
still is. Yep.
Top guy, been on the podcast, and that's the name that came to mind when you said organised chaos, because like Michael officially has, I think he has Fridays off, but he doesn't.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just like he's always on, and he's always answering phone calls. I went to I was over at Laker over in Lathlane, and Killer's often over there. And I ordered my coffee, saw him there, walked up, and I said, Mike, do you want company? And he goes, oh, no, not really, Peter. I'm really busy right now. I've got all these calls to make. He says, but sit down while I make the calls. Yeah. And he's sitting down. He's having a conversation with me, and he's on these phone calls. And when he wasn't on the phone calls, he's texting people and still having a conversation with me. And he's asking me how I'm going. And it's just like he's got a... This guy is high bandwidth.
Yeah, he is. And I can remember it would have been one of the first ever bar camps that you organised. And he did a session there. And he said, you know, with my exercise, some mornings I walk along the South Perth foreshore making calls. Yeah. And when it come to question time, I said, how do you do that? He said, well, you just got your call list and you just go for your hour walk and you're making calls as you go. But because we mix in the same areas between South Perth and Vic Park and Lathlane, I often see Michael there and I go to talk to him and he shoos me away. He goes, go away. I'll come and talk to you later, DJ. Yeah.
But if you sat there, you'd talk to you.
Yeah. So that organised and plus, Peter, they have really strong work ethic, and if you're in the middle of something and it means you've got to work an extra hour after 6 o'clock tonight, that's what they do, or they come in and start an hour earlier, etc. So they have a really strong work ethic.
How does that show up for a seller? I'm thinking that it shows up in returned phone calls, phone calls being returned immediately, or one step better is they actually take your phone call. Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more on that. Yeah. I think, Peter, that I have a little saying that you need to return all calls before sunset, and don't leave them till the next day. And I think by doing that and doing what you said you were going to do, that's what those top agents do. So how it benefits a seller, I think it shows sincerity, Peter. I think it shows that you're really sincere in getting the job done for them. Not only in today's market, but, you'll recall 6-7 years ago, property was on the market for 60 days.
Yeah.
And your total stress was based around every Monday morning calls to your sellers to ask for another price reduction. But you did that. And I think that the reward to the seller is, I reckon it shows sincerity.
Yeah, and what it I guess what it feels like if somebody was thinking about employing an agent, what they would experience when they're first interacting with the agent is a responsiveness, like an instantaneous responsiveness. There wouldn't be this lag in calls coming back to them. It'd be just like instant.
Yeah, without doubt. Well, response time's very, very important in today's market. And you made a very good point a moment ago about making the call, taking the call. If I sat here now and did 10 calls to real estate reps, as in cold calls, selling my coaching service, I might connect with one.
Yeah.
But they tell me, oh, no, DJ, then we ring them back because we get their name and we get their number and we can go into RP data and all these sort of things.
That.
Yeah, me too.
I hate that, David.
Speak to people because in our industry...
Answer your
phone
call.
Yeah, without doubt, because one of the key things of our industry is we cannot sell anything. We cannot sell something until we speak to somebody.
Yeah.
Start the relationship off.
Yeah. And what about texts? Like, is there has things moved on from phone calls? Because you and I remember, like, for the longest time, it was always in order of priority. It's face to face, phone call, or letter/email.
Yep.
Like that. That's the effectiveness level. And so, but a lot of times people actually don't want to talk on their phone now. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think the key at the listing/sales presentation is to say to people, how would you like me to communicate with you? And the other thing I say, what is the best time of the day? Because there's so many shift workers in our population these days. If someone says, well, DJ, if you don't mind, I'm happy for you to ring me at 6:30 in the morning because that's when I'm driving from one side of Perth to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ask them, how do you want me to communicate? When do you want me to communicate? What form of communication?
Mm-hmm.
And if they want a text message after the home open, text them. Yep. If they want their salary report, which we do anyway, but I up front, and the other thing also, Peter, is that was forced upon us through COVID was Zoom or FaceTime, etc. Well, would you? No, wouldn't mind. Look, I don't get in till 7:30 every night. If you want to send me an appointment booking on Zoom, let's just catch up for 15 minutes there. So we've got all those lots of different forms, but we need to establish with our seller what's going to work with them.
For them. Yeah. So to a seller, to a prospective seller, what does a good real estate agent look like? And I'm thinking that they'd have some sort of local track record.
Yeah. But you need the track record, and when you say local track record, what are they doing in the community? Are they a good citizen, etc. Because if you are involved in your community, they'll see you at the school fete, they'll see you at the school pickup, they'll see you at the kids' sport, etc. So that's, they see you as a good citizen.
Yeah.
But it will get back to your track record.
Talking about good citizen, David, now that's a really good point. So we both know somebody, and I'm going to mention his name because he's a bit of a legend, Ron French.
Yep.
And like Ron and I worked for you at the same time. Ron was there. Well, he was the Brown French back in the day, and he was, and he was actively involved in the community, wasn't he?
Unbelievable. Yeah. He was in, I can name them, football, cricket, darts. There was other things probably as well, but Ronnie was that was his prospecting, Peter.
It was. And do you remember he used to leave about 4:30 on just about every night of the week, and he'd say, "Oh well, I'm off to do an appraisal," and he'd pick up his listing folder and head out the door, and you'd say, "Bullshit! He's not going to an appraisal. He's going to the footy club."
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
and sure enough, he would. Yeah. But next day, he'd come in with a listing form filled in and signed.
Yes, without doubt.
He was an absolute jet.
He was, very, and he was actively involved in those sporting clubs and that as well. He didn't just go as a spectator. Yeah. He was the president or the secretary or the treasurer or whatever it might be. But that was his form of prospecting. And myself, I learnt a lot from that. And at various stages, I was actively involved in sporting, and the fact that I was brought up in Kalgoorlie, left Kalgoorlie for a number of years and went back again. But Peter, I remember the brother Pat, the principal of the Catholic high school where Sarah was going to school, approached me and said, "We'd like you to be on the board." Well, mate, I think I was on the board for 3 years. I still got no idea what Catholic education was all about. But it opened you up to a new bunch of people, Peter, that I would otherwise not met.
Yes.
And that's the value of it.
Yeah. Do you think that in country towns it's easier to do that sort of thing, or is that just something imagined? That
No, I think it's something imagined. Yeah, because like if we're here in Vic Park, for example.
Just killed the
camera. Sorry, Peter. If we're here in Vic Park, where we are today, and you've had a connection here for a number of years prior to coming into real estate, there's no reason why you can't continue that connection on.
Yes.
And you can still be part of the community. Yeah. See, on the stairs going up here, I see there's a community garden down here. Well, I stopped and had a look at that, and I thought, if I was selling today, what could I do there? What could I do there?
It's funny you should say that, because my ex-business partner, Jay Wood, and his then partner, Joe Mucci, were part of the people that set that thing up.
There you go.
Yeah. They were very actively involved in that. Yeah. And I think there was an old PFR sign on there.
Oh, is that right? Well, there you go. Yeah.
For a while. Yeah. So.
No. I think it's just one of these things in real estate it's a myth. If you see, a potential seller can't contact you, Pete, if they don't know you. If they don't know you, well, they just can't contact you. But they can know you, and I say a few things about that. They can know you through their letterbox, through their inbox, through their digital box, through their face box, and through their ear box. And on the face side of it, that's where you see. And I say to people, well, how often do you come here for a cup of coffee? Oh, I don't, DJ. I'm meeting you here today. Well, is this your patch? Yeah, well, you need to come here regularly. That's why Mike parks himself over at Laker.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's probably enjoys himself there, but I think there's a strategic element to that.
There would
just as Derek Baston.
Yeah.
Derek and Lee, you'll find them after their runs in the mornings, sitting down at Social Manor in Vic Park and chatting to all their friends, and I see Derek in there talking to local builders and so on, and that's their way of kind of like they're almost doing this reality show, like a reality TV show without the cameras. It's
that's
everyone's seeing. Oh, that's Derek Baston, the local real estate agent, and it's good stuff.
But Pete, you can connect through the community through your social media as well. And Natalie Hoy does it exceptionally well. So if you were living over Mount Lawley that way over there, and you wanted to know where to go for dinner tonight, you go into her social media, and here's a new restaurant, here's a new coffee shop, here's where you get the best ice cream.
Yeah.
Well, so she's building a following, and I call those followers then that they have a non-verbal relationship with us. Meaning they've never met us, they've never talked to us, but they feel they've got a relationship with us by either the physical presence or the social media presence.
Yeah. Now, talking about social media, David, I spoke to this guy that I know pretty well, and I said to him once, "Oh, Dave, you need to
I know.
you need to get on Facebook, David." And well, what do I need to get on that bloody stuff for? Waste of time. Yeah. What do people want to know what I've had for lunch? And now you've got like a gazillion followers. And
I have. Yeah.
Instagram and
Peter, I know the coffee shop that we talked about that, and I said, what have you got there, Pete? He said, oh, this is an iPad. An iPad? Oh, right, okay. What do I do with that? Yeah. So no, Peter, I have a lot to thank you for in that regard. And, I do my videos, my podcast, the lot. Yeah, my blogs are video, not written blogs.
But I think that, for real estate agents, Dave, and, I certainly wasn't chasing accolades there by any means. The point being that Facebook or social media gives people the opportunity to share their knowledge with the world.
Yeah.
And do it in a way that is not, is just like, here's my knowledge, here's what I know. And if you want to take this further, then reach out. And I think it's a pretty good way to do business, to be honest.
It is, and that knowledge that you can share, you can separate yourself from the rest of the market then, Peter. Like we went through, and I don't see as many these days, but we went through a period there a couple of years ago where every social media post was one home open, 50 people through, 7 offers, sold at $100,000 above the asking price. Well, that was the marketing. But why would someone select you? Because your competition's doing that as well.
Yeah.
And so you're putting yourself out there. But if you did a market report at the end of the month, etc., and videoed it, and you're in the local park or you're outside the local coffee shop or whatever, that's separating you. So you just got to be conscious that you're not doing what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
And the second thing, whatever you do elect to do, you've got to do it consistently. And I know sometimes with my videos, it's like, oh, you've got to be kidding. I've got to go and do this tomorrow. Yeah. But I've got to write the scripts. I've got to write the dialogue. But it's consistency.
Yes. And you've got into podcasts yourself with Ross.
Ross,
the Sales Athlete podcast.
That's it.
I should have introduced you as like a podcaster as well.
Yeah. Yep.
And is that working for you? And do you think there's an opportunity for real estate agents to to get into podcasting?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah, and Pete, because we've got access to those podcasts in a from a multiple time frame. You know, I can listen to one on the way to work. I can listen to, like, we're closely associated with Esperance. Well, Cheryl and I listen to podcasts all the 8-hour drive down there, and or you can get up in the morning. So a lot of those short, sharp ones only go for 5 minutes. Well, that's all 5 minutes a day, and you're going to increase your knowledge quite considerably. So it gives you, as a listener, so many different time span opportunities to listen and comprehend what you're learning and listening to from those podcasts. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Look, I think there's a wonderful opportunity for. I know in my case, I like to have smart people on this podcast. And
thank you, Peter.
People like yourself, Dave, who's taught me.
You wouldn't have thought that.
I just go. Just share your knowledge with my community or with our community, and I just think it's a wonderful wonderful way to market yourself.
Well, yeah, it is. Yeah, because. Everyone's got, like, you had young Prash on here.
Yes.
Yeah, and I remember the first day he started, it was like, oh, DJ, what do I do now? and to look where he's taken his auctioneer career, for example. So if you're interested in auctioneering, he's the person to talk to.
Yes.
And but
that's amazing, isn't it? Because he literally started from scratch.
He did.
And he has worked his little butt off.
He has, yeah. And very energetic and very.
Yes.
So he's one of those ones that's all in, Peter.
Yes.
All in, 100%. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I wonder. I don't think that it's possible for a really good real estate agent to be anything but all in.
Not today. It's too competitive out there, Peter.
Yeah.
And so you go back to when we started. It was regulated fees. So that wasn't the problem. What we came up against was overpricing of listings, etc., and that was our main competition. But now you can have the greatest listing presentation, and I'll talk about it in a moment as well. And someone's going to list it for more than you and discount your fee.
Yeah.
And I think when that starts to happen, and when you're feeling that at the listing presentation, it's actually not a listing presentation, Peter. It's a sales presentation, and that seller's going to sell you on no, or you're going to sell them on yes. And so if we change our mindset from a listing presentation to a sales presentation, we're then qualified to compete in regards to the price of the property and the amount of our fee.
I asked Peter Robertson. I ask a lot of real estate agents, and the question of, well, what do you think of scripts and dialogues? And part of me goes, yeah, well, it's a toolkit. They served me well. I was a great devotee of Tom Hopkins.
Yes, we were. Yep.
And Dave Stone, but particularly Tom Hopkins.
Yep.
We used to get the videos. We had them. Do you remember that we had them shipped down from Kalgoorlie up from Perth?
Yeah,
we were in Perth down to Kalgoorlie, and
well, he was all we had.
Yeah, he was. Yes, and but your scripts and dialogues, I think, only get you so far, and then the next stage is people like Natalie Hoy, who they have got this whole different presence. And I think a Natalie Hoy listing appointment would be just a really intense conversation. I think Nat's got a way of being present to someone that a lot of real estate agents, they're so worried about what they're going to say, they forget that they are actually there in service of their client. What do you think about that? Is there a thing there around?
I think negotiation these days, Peter, because the listing/sales presentation, let's call it a listing presentation because that's what everyone knows it as, is a series of negotiations, and you have 4 negotiations: your selling strategy, your pricing strategy, your marketing strategy, and your fee strategy. So the key to negotiation these days, from my point of view, is it's a question-based presentation. The more, so if I ask you a question, you're the seller, I ask you a question, you're compelled to give me an answer. Then I can ask you another question, or alternatively, I can extend the conversation in the direction that I want to take that conversation. Yeah, and someone taught me this years ago, just simply how, why, what, when, who, where. Why would you say that, Peter? You know, where are you heading? When do you think you'd want to be there by? So
But I think it goes beyond that, David. I suspect that the best agents have gone beyond where, what, why, when, and how to they are genuinely there for the client. They are genuine. I'm sure this is the case with the likes of Michael Keel, Peter Robertson, Natalie Hoy. They are just they actually almost at a point where they don't care whether they get the listing or not. They want to know that David James makes the right decision for David James, and if that decision happens to be one of those three, fantastic. And if it's not, I respect your decision to go somewhere else, and good luck. Stay in touch.
Having said that, Peter, it's really 1 hour of intense concentration.
Yeah,
that's what it is. You can't drift. You can't go there. There's a very good book out written by a guy called Dr. Adam Fraser called Third Space.
Third Space, yeah.
Okay, so you and I are in first space now. When I leave here, I'm going to a coaching session. Okay, now I need that second space. I need to go into third space for 20 minutes or so and just clear my head of what I've spoken to Peter Fletcher about. So they do that. So when they arrive at the listing presentation, they're ready for that intense 1 hour of concentration to secure the business and secure the best direction for their seller.
Yep. Go there and concentrate and be focused and be present.
And
don't let your mind wander and
that's right. And another key to that we don't talk about, Peter, is observation. So if you're really concentrating, they'll put out some signals to you.
Yes,
they'll put out some buying signals, for the want of a better word, that too, and that once again goes with your concentration, is your observation of the environment that you're in and their reaction to such things as the pricing and the marketing and your fees, etc.
So for someone who was wanting to select a real estate agent, I imagine that the experience of a good real estate agent would be an experience of smoothness, calmness, and relaxation, where you'd be able to just, they would put you at ease, and you would be able to relax in their presence. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it is. But you've also got to have the ability to ask for the business.
Yeah, right.
You've also got to have that ability to close.
Yeah. So, and if you don't, you're just an order taker. And the seller actually wants that.
They do.
Because if the real estate agent's not willing to ask for the business from the seller, then you're pretty damn sure that they are not going to ask the business from the buyer.
That's right.
Because
you're spot on.
That comes at a conversation with the buyer going, could you put another 50 grand on the table? And the buyer's, and do they have the ability to overcome those objections and to get the extra 50K, which goes into the seller's pockets and everyone's.
Pete, as I said earlier on, it's a series of negotiations. There's mountains and mountains of videos and podcasts and emails and blogs and that on sales, but I don't see many on how do you negotiate. And our whole business is a series of negotiations, and you're absolutely right that in all those things that you just said, but at the end of the day, you've got to finish the negotiation with the close, which really gets down to asking for the business. But if we want to give young budding real estate people any advice today, learn how to negotiate, and number 2, learn your CRM, because then you're going to be putting people in there that you may have a relationship with them for 2 years or more before they're ready to sell. But when they do contact you, or you're in contact with them continually, when you go to do your listing presentations, 50% of the listing presentation around trust and track record, etc., is already ticked off, already done.
Yeah, yeah, because you've already had those conversations along the way.
It's the key to it, mate.
It's just like, well, here it is, and
And when you would have started in the industry, I would have given you a packet of cards, little index cards we call them.
Oh yes, the old 8x5 cards. I was pretty good at that.
Everyone you meet, you got to write their name on here. And you had a tin box, ABC.
Yeah.
Well, technology and not every CRM. I get people say to me, "Oh, I don't use the CRM; it's no good." But there's not a perfect CRM out there.
No.
But there is a CRM that you can use to put David and Cheryl James in it, our address, our email address, phone, and when we last had a conversation with them, and for the CRM to remind me when I got to ring them again.
Yeah.
If you do that, you drive to that listing presentation on your agenda. You're not worried about your competition because you have an existing relationship of which 50% of your presentation's already been accounted for.
Yeah. I would suspect that the best real estate agents, their listing presentation doesn't need to be great. It's just like, I've spoken to Tash Wellburn on a number of occasions, and Tash is a powerhouse around here. Tash does not have a listing presentation. It's just she just walks in, and they say, "Yep, I want to list the property."
Yeah.
Okay, good. And she walk out without even signing the listing form, and it gets sorted out at some point.
Yeah.
And it's just like she's got this level of gravitas about her that people just go, okay, if that's what you say, Tash, yes, I'll do that.
That's it, yeah, Peter. And one of my opening questions used to always be, Peter, Rita, great to see you, blah, blah, blah. Can I just start by asking one question? Why am I here? Why am I here?
Yeah.
Oh, what do you reckon, David? Here to sell our house. Oh, you want me to sell your house for you? But that one simple question, then you could put all, because sometimes we go in armed with too much stuff, Peter.
Yes.
And I see when we do role plays on listing presentations, people will have a dozen pieces of sales evidence. Well, what's my house worth?
Yeah.
And you just go, oh, really? And the one that we spoke about 15 minutes ago, we've forgotten about that one.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to go in sort of unarmed, don't we?
Yeah. Be a bit vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Talking about listings and prices and stuff, how much is a home is worth. I've spoken to a lot of real estate agents, and they say that, and I told this story a while back about Michael Keel's, one of Michael's listings, and really hard to work out how much a property's worth today, because you say, well, the sales evidence says that it's worth $450, but it sells for $550. Well, how do you know how far it's going to run? How do real estate agents address this issue of what the punters would call it, what the public would call it, underquoting? What could they do to address that issue?
Well, is that a...
Because I see it on Instagram. On TikTok, there's this guy just gone absolutely ballistic about, agents underquoting. But I actually don't think it's deliberate.
Well, Peter, perhaps, the only thing that would stop it completely is legislation. But that, where we're vulnerable to this sort of thing is the fact that the rep's sitting in someone's kitchen, in someone's lounge room, or they're sitting in the office and they have a decision to make as to how they're going to secure this business. And that's where it starts from. And yourself as an ex-principal and licensee, etc., how do we control that? Well, we can only control it by observing what they're doing once they've written the business, etc. But to me, I've always, and I coach people along these ways, that that there's three prices to a property. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there is your price, which may be a dream price, it might be a get-out price, it might be emotional price. Then there's my price, which if I'm called upon, I need to be able to justify that price. But I also want a price that I can go to market where I'll attract buyers. The third price is the buyer's price, and believe me, in this market, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? And so we need to attract those buyers, but we need to do it in a way that satisfies the seller, but also satisfies our own self-conscious that we're doing it the correct way, and that doesn't always happen. And the only way we can control those people is by legislation, or alternatively, we have principals that can rule it out in their office. Because, Pete, when we used to go to branch REWA meetings, and someone would say, which we weren't allowed to say because that's when we were supposed to be a cartel or whatever. Oh, there's people in this town that are overpricing. Oh, it's not me. Or underpricing. Oh, it's not me. And you look around the room and no one does it. Yeah. So we would never get the honest truth out of it.
Who is it that shapes your coaching and your thinking around real estate? Do you have your own coach, or do you have a collection of mentors or associates that sort of coach you or that shape you?
Okay, so no, I don't. But I elect to only follow one coach or trainer on the East Coast. I don't follow them all. I think Lee Woodward's as good as what I've come across, because I find that if you're following too many people, you just end up with a lot of shit in your head, Pete, if you don't mind me saying. And then you go, what do I do next? Number two, it's my experience. Number three, sometimes mentally I might need to call on someone, and that's Jet Xavier. And he gives me a bit of a wrap around the knuckles and says, Dave, come on, you need to get back on track, etc. But I think, Pete, that I think it's my experience and really my energy. I've just still got all this crazy amount of energy. I'm a bit of a freak show, and so I can pick up on things. And in my coaching sessions particularly, it gets down to a lot of observation and asking the right sort of questions, because a trainer comes into the room and says, this is how we do it, team. See you later. Trainers up on the stage do the same, whereas a coach gets close to his clients, and a coach is then accountable for the results that person will deliver, not only to themselves but to the business that they're in. And that's the difference, that there's a lot of accountability associated with it, and the coach is responsible for what they say, because that will determine the end result.
Yeah, but you're a reader.
I do.
You sound like you read a fair bit.
I do read a lot still, yeah.
And aside from the third space, what books are you recommending?
Right,
any special ones?
Yeah. I'm a big follower of Jeffrey Gitmer, Gitmer, who is not a real estate salesperson. He's a sales trainer coach out of America. He'll teach you a lot about selling, because I don't think we do enough training in that around selling. Okay, so I read a lot of his and follow his videos and podcasts. The podcast's called Die or Sell, or Sell or Die. Yeah. So, and I'm currently reading a book from John C. Maxwell on leadership, and it is directed at leaders, but there's various chapters in there like character and influence, etc. That has got so much sales stuff that it relates to you as an individual salesperson. So I'm finding his leadership relating to that, not only leading a bunch of people but leading you as an individual. It's really good stuff.
Okay, Dave. One last question: Do you watch Lux listings?
No,
you don't. Right. Well, I'm not going to ask you that.
Oh, come on, Peter.
I was going to ask if have you ever seen the movie, the show Selling Sunset?
No.
On Netflix?
No.
Oh, you've got to watch these things, Dave.
Right. Okay.
They are incredibly glib portrayals of real estate agents. But my question was going to be, who is the star of the show if we had Lux Listings Perth? Who would be the lead agent?
Oh, that'd have to be, I suppose, Vivian Yap, based upon her, her volume.
Yes.
She does enormous volumes.
Yes.
But Peter, there's so many good people out there, mate. I coach a husband and wife team down in the southwest. They're not only right over $1 million a year in GCI, they've also got a dairy farm. They've also got a breeding. They breed dairy cows, etc. And they are really, really worth listening to, and right through to someone that sells 100 plus properties.
Yes.
But obviously Vivian would be there, and all those top people. But I've got a bit of a different view on this, because I also get the opportunity to work with particularly single mums.
Okay.
That are selling 30, 40 houses a year, writing 300, 400,000 a year, and their time management and what they do, as well as look after their kids and accept all that responsibility. That's a story that we should be witnessing and listening to.
On that note, which is a beautiful note to finish on, David, we'll make that happen.
Thanks, Pete. Good on you, mate.
Thanks for being part of the show, Dave. And until next week, this has been Peter Fletcher. And that wraps up another episode of the WA Property Q&A. We hope you found our discussion valuable and gained some valuable insights into the world of property buying in Western Australia. Remember, while we strive to provide useful information, it's crucial to consult with the appropriate professionals before making any investment decisions. Don't forget to tune in next week for another exciting episode where we continue to unravel the mysteries of the WA property market. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, happy property hunting, and remember to seek the right advice for your personal circumstances. Thank you for listening.